Adam Silver ended up getting on the NBC News, and he was talking about the CBA negotiation that's going on between, of course, the owners and the players, and he absolutely said something that pissed the WNBPA off. All right, they ended up taking shots at him, which I will show y'all that after this. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had.
All right, so Adam Silver just dropped a massive announcement that absolutely nobody saw coming. And the WNBPA's reaction? Total meltdown. But here's where things get wild. What he said doesn't just shake up the current talks. It actually exposes the real reason the entire negotiation is collapsing from the inside. By the time we're done here, you'll understand why some insiders are quietly warning that the WNBA could be in serious danger by 2026. No exaggeration. This is bigger than most people think. Oh, here's what happened. Adam Silver goes on NBC News for what seems like a standard interview about the upcoming CBA talks. Everything's calm, everything's polished, until he drops one line that completely flips the conversation. Pay close attention to how he says it.
Share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
So the main part that I want us to pay attention to is this first part, okay? It's really quick. This clip was really quick, but we need to pay attention to what he said right here.
NBA? Yes, I mean, I think share...
Did you catch that line? The whole conversation flips when he says, "Don't focus on shares." That single sentence lays out the playbook. What most people miss is this. By telling everyone not to fixate on splits, Silver was essentially signaling that the players won't get the revenue share they're demanding. Not now, not ever. The WNBPA didn't take it quietly. They fired back on Instagram, a one-line jab that read like a direct call-out, "Don't want to share, Adam Silver?" And suddenly the negotiations turned public and personal. Here's the twist. Silver's statement isn't pure bluster. There's arithmetic behind it, and once you run the numbers, the picture he painted starts to make sense. But to understand why he might be right, we have to walk through the financial reality the media isn't covering. The players are asking for a split similar to the NBA's, which sounds reasonable on paper, but the real outcome depends entirely on the underlying math. If you want, I'll break down those numbers next and show exactly how this negotiation could collapse under its own logic.
And by the way, it's not even the owners, the players. So the players get 50% of the money. Where does the rest of the money go? And this is revenue, not profit, not 50% of profits. They want 50% of revenue. So the WNBA costs, let's just make the maths easy. Let's just say it costs $100 million to run the WNBA. It doesn't, it costs way more.
And that right there exposes the core issue. Let's break it down. If the league makes $100 million, spends $100 million to operate, and then promises players $50 million in revenue share, every single owner takes a guaranteed loss. No investor anywhere signs up for that kind of math. But here's where things get even more complicated. The WNBA isn't built like the NBA and the NBA. Teams and owners control nearly all of their revenue streams. TV deals, sponsorships, arena rights, merch, you name it. The WNBA, on the other hand, doesn't even own half of what flows in. It's a web of third-party investors, shared infrastructure with the NBA, and external funding just to keep operations balanced. That means the actual WNBA franchises aren't full owners of their own league. They're minority stakeholders inside a system that relies on outside capital to survive, so when players push for a 50-50 revenue split, they're asking for something that simply can't happen under the current financial setup. And this is where things get fascinating, because to fix that, the league would have to completely reinvent its business model.
That benefit from the league not existing. There are players that benefit from the league not existing. And by the way, we know these players that are in the PA have basically diplomatic immunity from getting fired. If Unrivaled goes 5v5, they're going to make a little more money. But you want to know who's not going to make more money?
That's a bold claim. Zero professionalism from the WNBPA. But when you look closer at what's been happening, it's not hard to see why that's being said. They've leaked their own award results out of frustration toward Caitlin Clark. They've called for investigations over situations that never actually happened. They've even had to delete posts after getting dragged by their own players. But here's the piece nobody's connecting, and it changes everything. Some of the people holding leadership roles in the Players Association could actually profit if the WNBA itself starts to collapse. Let that sink in. If Unrivaled, the new player-run league, expands to full 5-on-5, certain high-profile names will get paid more there than they ever could in the WNBA. But for the 60 to 70 players barely scraping by on minimum contracts, that move would wipe them out completely. And this is where the psychology turns dark. Because the loudest voices in the room might not be fighting for the league's survival, they might be fighting for their own leverage in a system they already planned to leave behind.
He said here, we got to dial in right here. He's speaking really fast. Let's listen to this next part.
The NBA, I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making.
I think you should look at absolute numbers in terms of what they're making. Because this could be a big increase, right? We don't see in their proposal. The max going from 200,000 to 850,000. That's a big increase. That's a big increase, right? The minimum being over.
He's basically saying it out loud. We're not giving you a revenue share. They might tweak things around the edges, boost salaries a little, trim expenses, shuffle some budgets, but that overall percentage? That's locked in. And that raises a wild question. Was the awful officiating last season partly a side effect of cost-cutting? Were they already tightening budgets just to make the numbers look better on paper? Maybe so they could say, look, we're paying players more, without actually touching the revenue split. But here's the part that's really driving the players up the wall. They can see what's happening, but they can't stop it.
That we are seeing this type of thing. And look, I think the players should make a lot more money. I think apparently somebody who knows the WNBA finance really well is like, even if the players got 80% of their merch, and they got like a percentage of ticket revenue, which they actually get none of right now, but it's like, even if you give them 80% of their merch, apparently the total still goes to about only just over $1 million.
So here's the sticking point. They're refusing to agree to a fixed salary cap with steady yearly raises. They want it tied directly to revenue, meaning it moves up or down every single season. That sounds good in theory, until you realize what it actually does. If the numbers shift every year, no one's signing multi-year contracts. Every deal turns into a one-year gamble because nobody knows what the cap will look like next season. The whole system becomes unpredictable and unstable. And even if players got everything they're asking for, say, 80% of their merch profits and a slice of ticket revenue, which right now they don't get at all, it only adds up to maybe an extra $1 million across the league. That's it. The cash they're chasing? It just isn't there in the amounts they think it is. But this is where it starts to get really uncomfortable.
Even own half of what's coming into your league. So that 9% might have to stay there the way that he's talking because of how they're falling short already on making enough money to pay for how much the league costs to run, right? So that 9% might have to stay there. I don't know. That's the way he's talking. He's like, maybe not look at it as far as shares. Now, to me, it sounds like he's saying, we don't necessarily want to increase that share number. We're just going to get a little bit more efficient.
He basically spelled it out. There's a real possibility the WNBA is being treated as a business write-off. Owners could be taking tax breaks on the losses, which means some of them might actually gain more from the league not turning a profit. Now think about what that means for motivation if running the league at a loss gets you financial relief and good press for supporting women's sports. Why would any owner sign a deal that guarantees even bigger losses? They wouldn't. It's not smart business, and that's the heart of the players' frustration. From their point of view, the league looks like it's booming, packed arenas, Caitlin Clark bringing in record crowds, merchandise flying off shelves. Oh, naturally they're asking, if the money's flowing like that, why aren't we seeing it? But here's what most of them don't realize.
Revenue split happens. It is essentially a guarantee the owners lose money, and there's no scenario where that's ever going to happen. And I think the players are like, there will never be a situation where they budge on the revenue split. There won't be. If there's no 2026 season, there's not going to be a 2027 season, there's not going to be a 2028 season. I think an argument could be made that it is beneficial that the whole league shuts down. And
the NBA isn't just a distant partner. They actually stepped in to rescue the WNBA financially. They're not minor backers of individual teams. They're stakeholders propping up the league itself. And those new outside investors? They didn't buy into specific franchises. They bought into the WNBA's entire framework. Oh, when players push for a 50% revenue share, they're not only asking team owners to shrink their profits, they're asking the NBA to give up part of its own return. And they're asking private investors to accept smaller payouts on money they just put in. There's zero incentive for any of those groups to say yes. It's a textbook example of negotiation psychology. The players feel powerful right now because of the league's surge in popularity last season. But when you look closer, do they really have that leverage? Let's break it down.
And talking his talk, he was going to settle everything. I thought he was going to fix everything. I called him Thanos to fix it. Man, he talking just like Kathy. He talking just like Kathy, man. He like, look, we not trying to get y'all this share money. We're going to find a way to get those increases going, right? Y'all going to make a little bit of more money, but y'all not going to get any more of this share. I'm sorry. We're not looking at it as shares because y'all not making a profit. Y'all not making close to as much as the NBA is making. So
even with Caitlin Clark setting the league on fire, she alone can't rescue it. That's the hard reality most people avoid admitting. Sure, she's brought a wave of excitement and boosted the viewership numbers, but not even a once-in-a-generation player can fix a system that's broken at its core. And now things are getting even more tangled. You've got Unrivaled stepping in, and Project B on the horizon with serious financial backing. These new leagues are structured completely differently there. Investors hold majority, sometimes full, ownership stakes. They don't have to deal with the confusing shared ownership setup that the WNBA is stuck in. But here's the kicker, and it's what almost nobody's talking about. Unrivaled might sound like the future, but it's carrying a massive risk that everyone's overlooking.
24 more players got to like, 60 instead of 44. Added 16 more players, made it 5v5 with 10 players per team. And the league becomes infinitely better, but they're so stuck on gimmick basketball that's not real basketball that they've screwed it. They've screwed it. Like, I think if Unrivaled was 5v5, I think a lot of other players would be playing. I think Caitlin Clark played.
If Unrivaled wasn't built around a gimmick format, I'd be all in. That 3-on-3 setup, that's the real problem. Because if they ran full 5-on-5 basketball, this would be a completely different story. Caitlin Clark would almost certainly jump in, Nia Wilson too, especially if there's a lockout. But instead of expanding the rosters and making it feel like real league play, they chose to add 2 new teams instead of 4 more players per team. They could have had 60 players involved instead of 44. They could have made it authentic basketball instead of a showcase event. But they're so locked into the 3-on-3 brand that they've boxed themselves in. And now WNBA players are stuck in an impossible position, caught between a traditional league that's financially unstable and a new one that doesn't even play the same version of the game.
With these WNBPA posts, I think they might actually be half pushing to shut down the league. And I don't know if that's the worst thing in the world. Because at the end of the day, I think if I would be looking at that option way more favorably if Unrivaled was not gimmick basketball. If Unrivaled was just 5v5, if instead of adding 2 more teams to Unrivaled, they added 4 more players per team.
From a structural point of view, a new league model, where players work directly with investors who fully own the operation, makes way more sense in the long run. That setup has real growth potential, no complicated bailout deals, no split ownership like the WNBA has with the NBA. It's a cleaner system, but only if it's actual basketball. It only works if it's 5-on-5, not the showcase style we're seeing now. Because let's be honest, the momentum from Caitlin Clark's breakout year, the spike in playoff viewership, and the flood of new attention, that kind of buzz doesn't last forever. If there's number 2026 season, that wave of excitement disappears for good. This moment right now, it's the high point, and the league is dangerously close to letting it slip away. And what's happening behind the scenes explains exactly why.
Like, this reminds me of the we call BS thing. Like, there is zero, and I mean zero professionalism from the WNBPA, and there hasn't been for years. Like, they've leaked their own awards out of spite for Caitlin Clark. They've leaked their own awards out of spite for a player that they're meant to represent. They have given credit, like they have basically demanded the WNBA start an investigation, which they have, and basically called out the league for not punishing people for something that didn't happen. For not punishing.
They've leaked their own award results out of frustration. They've pushed for investigations that never even needed to happen. They've deleted posts after getting pressured online. And this is the same group trying to negotiate a new revenue split. See the problem? When you bargain from emotion instead of strategy, you lose every single time. The owners are sitting with spreadsheets and profit models, cold, calculated numbers. Meanwhile, the players' union is firing off Instagram stories and calling out Adam Silver in public. Those are 2 completely different energy levels, and only one side is treating this like business. But beneath all of this, there's a deeper layer connecting every move, every outburst, every negotiation tactic.
In the NBA, I think
He's talking really fast right there. He said, I think share is the wrong way to look at it because there's so much more money being made in the NBA. And this is the problem, okay? This is the problem that is going on in the CBA negotiation. You can't increase that number to half like the NBA because there are so many other hands in the cookie jar, fam. Like I stated in the last video.
Their share can only rise if one of the other two sides gives something up, and that's the whole problem. Either the NBA's cut gets smaller or the outside investors take less, and neither group has any reason to do that. Oh, what's Adam's move? Honestly, it's smart. He's shifting the focus away from percentages and toward growth. Instead of changing the revenue split, he's promising bigger paychecks through expansion and efficiency. Top salaries jumping from around $200,000 to $850,000, minimums climbing past $300,000. Those are massive improvements in real numbers. But here's the catch. The players don't just want bigger checks. They want a seat at the table, ownership in the structure itself. And that's where this entire thing hits a wall, because without a total overhaul of how the league is built, that kind of change is mathematically impossible.
It becomes a hell of a lot less complicated. But at the end of the day, with the these players could 100% get paid more if there was an entire league 5v5 with structured league, not named the WNBA, because of the weird business deals, or not weird business deals WNBA made to stay afloat. The problem is,
I'm starting to wonder if some people actually want the league to fall apart. What if a few of the key voices in leadership quietly believe that a total reset, a brand new league with a cleaner structure, would be better for them personally? Think about it. If you're a top-tier star, your name alone guarantees contracts, endorsements, and visibility no matter where you played. A fresh league could mean higher pay, more control, and no old baggage. But if you're the 60th player on the roster, fighting just to keep a spot, that same collapse would wipe you out completely. No team. No paycheck. No platform. That's the tension nobody wants to admit. The split between those who can afford to gamble on change and those whose careers would vanish if the WNBA truly went under.
Because this momentum is never coming back. Because this league probably, if the 2026 season doesn't happen, the WNBA is done. It will never happen. It's done. I think every one of those owners that has built any of those facilities, I think they all have get out of jail free clauses, all those expansion teams.
If the 2026 season doesn't tip off, it might never come back. Those new expansion franchises everyone's excited about? Their shiny new facilities all have exit clauses built in. If the league folds, those arenas can easily be converted for other sports or events. The owners are protected, they'll move on. But the players? They're left with nothing. No season means no checks, no exposure, and no momentum. And the only alternative would be unrivaled, which, let's be honest, is still 3-on-3 showcase basketball, not the real 5-on-5 stage the stars want. So here's where we are. The deadline's closing in, the players are asking for something the owners can't physically afford without taking losses on every dollar earned. And both sides refuse to budge. It's tragic irony. The WNBA just had its most successful season ever, driven by Caitlin Clark and a surge of new fans. But that same success might be the very thing that tears it apart. Because for the first time, the players believe they have leverage, but the financial structure says otherwise. This was never just about fairness, it's about math, and math always wins.